But I guess we have to start in Madrid for the second leg between Real Madrid and Arsenal. A lot of talk about remontada before, a lot of talk about what happened in the first leg and the 3-0 win for Arsenal at the Emirates. And really, there was no surprise in the end, right? Because Arsenal were still too good, too much better.
Absolutely, yeah. I totally agree. I think going into the game, the remontada, all that discussion, they're going to do it again, they're going to do it again. Well, maybe historically they would have had a team that would make you believe that. But I just didn't believe in this Real Madrid team against Arsenal. It felt to me like it was going to be a game whereby Real Madrid would need the individuals to find moments. But for Arsenal, they're going there as a collective. They're led by someone like Odegaard, who's prepared to defend for 90 minutes if he needs to. Whereas I think from the Real Madrid side, it's like you hope that the spark exists from someone. And it feels like through these last few months, Real Madrid, obviously they battered City, but at this point, what does that mean to batter City? But they never felt like the Real Madrid that we gotten used to across these last few years, where they would find ways to win games.
Yeah, I agree.
But in some ways you can understand it. But no, I think credit to Arsenal. I thought they were really, really good, very mature. And as I look at it now, their biggest strength is the fact that I think they're a complete team.
Yeah, I agree.
They might not score a ton of goals as much as some people would want to, but I'll tell you what, there aren't many teams that would enjoy playing against Arsenal.
We were together on UK television on Wednesday night to talk about that game. And I think we said the setup defensively was perfect tactically. It was all under control. They never really panicked, even when Vini scored on the rare Saliba mistake, really the rare mistake that any Arsenal players really made. But with the ball as well, okay, Saka misses the penalty, but the Saka goal is great. The Martinelli goals are great. They just moved the ball when they had to. It looked like everything they were doing was just the right thing at that time. The decision-making was great.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we can look at the stats, or someone could look at the stats and say from the game, Real Madrid has so much more possession, they controlled it. They didn't really, because a lot of the possession wasn't really in dangerous areas. And for Arsenal themselves, they were in the right spots. They knew where they needed to be. And at times, they could soak up any sort of pressure. But it was always coming down to Vinicius coming in off the left. Can he shoot? Mbappe coming in off the left. Can he shoot? Trying to find these little 1-2s. But Arsenal was set. And I think, was it 40-odd crosses that, say, PSG put in yesterday?
Real Madrid, yeah.
I'm sorry, Real Madrid, yeah.
49 or 48, yeah.
Arsenal,
and for who as well?
That's what I mean. Who's going to be the one coming in at the back post? It's not a thing.
Yeah.
So I think Arsenal do deserve a ton of credit. Obviously, they would have wanted to have more possession overall. But the best moment for me through all that was in the last minute of the game. They've defended a corner. Kivior's headed kick in. Kivior's headed it out. Marino's got on the ball. Martinelli makes a run in the 93rd minute as if it's the first of the game. And in that moment, to see the difference between the two sides, he probably ran past 4 people as he was running. Real Madrid, you're the ones chasing the game. You need to have the desire to get back. But for Martinelli, he had the desire to have that moment, a 1v1 at the Bernabeu.
We said it was complete collective performance from Arsenal, but we said it even before, they are a better collective, really, than Real Madrid, who are some of individual, really. But if you had to maybe pick 1 or 2 Arsenal players that really, for you, were maybe slightly more outstanding than everybody else, because, again, everybody was good.
Yeah. I think Rice in midfield was magnificent. I think the way that he can sense the danger, the way that he can sort of drive with the ball, the personality he shows to get on the ball and not hide. Because, yourself, Jules, myself, lots of people, anyone that's played football really, it's very easy to hide sometimes. Yeah. It's very easy to not ask for the ball, especially in that sort of environment where a team is believing playing against you, they're going to get something. But I thought he was great. I thought defensively, overall, they were good. And to be honest, I liked Odegaard.
Yeah.
It's not a game where he's created a ton of opportunities, but the fact is he was their leader. He's their captain, and he's their captain that's prepared to go and be dogged. I think there was a point where they tried to show a replay when he was marking Asensio from a corner.
Yeah.
And so I was like, maybe it could have been a pen. But find yourself a number 10 that's prepared to go toe-to-toe with a player like that anyway. I think I was impressed by him. And to be honest, just Arsenal in general. So obviously, we've got to talk about star boy Saka. The penalty,
especially after the penalty.
Yeah, listen. Let's call it what it is. The penalty is a disaster.
Yeah,
okay?
it is.
It's a disaster. But he still had an impact in that game. You can see that Alaba wasn't comfortable playing against him. You can see Fran Garcia wasn't comfortable playing against him when that change happened as well. And they always had an out on that side. And the finish for his goal, Jules.
Oh man, I love that little shit.
Obviously, the ball from Marino's top, but the finish.
I know. It's so
top.
Sweet.
Yeah.
We will have to talk about Real Madrid, but we can do a bit now, and we'll continue on the Gab and Juls podcast, of course. As disappointing as it was, and I said it was a humiliation for me. It was an embarrassing defeat, not because Arsenal were not good or they're not a good team, but just from purely a Real Madrid point of view, to play like they did in those 2 legs, which was completely disjointed. There was no plan, no tactics. You mentioned the millions of crosses for no one. that I just find it embarrassing that it's not take nothing away from Arsenal and their performance, but from a Real Madrid point of view, a team like that has won so much, that is still the reigning champions, still possibly in course for a Liga title, a Copa del Rey title. So not a bad season. It's not like if they were 15th and hadn't won a game for 3 months. It's still Real Madrid, and yet they got schooled.
Yeah, they absolutely did, and I think that is a fair way to describe it, because there was a point where, because of the last, say, 10 years, you have a belief that Real Madrid will find something at some stage. They'll be able to turn the screw. Like, we've seen them score multiple goals in added time in games. We've seen them really push teams back. But it just wasn't there. I think, to even sum it up, when we were watching the game yesterday, I think it was in the 47th minute, Madrid had a corner, it got cleared. And next thing, there's just 2 Madrid players on the halfway line, and everybody else is just standing in the box.
So 2-8.
Yeah, 2-8. Just a 2-8. And you're like, this, I don't know, maybe the clock's broken, but this doesn't seem like the right time to do that. And as you say, when you look at Madrid throughout this entire competition, I think these stats are correct. So they played 14 games.
Yeah.
They lost 6 of them.
Yeah.
They conceded 22 goals in 14 games. This isn't the Real Madrid that we're used to seeing. It's not the Real Madrid that, say, would find moments and, show a little bit of magic or something like that. And it was poor. Given the talent that they had, all the different sections within the field just felt separate.
Yeah.
The midfield, the defense, the attack. It's 3 separate versions of Real Madrid. And if they're to be successful in the future, all has to come together.
Well, let's continue a little bit on Real Madrid, because I know the story is Arsenal, and really we said they deserve a lot of credit. But the story is also that the reigning champions, who've won 6 out of the last 12, have reached 10 semifinals of the last 12 years, are out as early as the quarterfinals, and maybe not so much how early it is in the way that they got knocked out, because 5-1 on aggregate never really looked in the style, really. I know there's the chance for Mbappe in the first leg at 0-0, when Bellingham gets the ball and that through ball, and then Mbappe hit the ball at Raya. But really, they were never in it. They were second best pretty much the whole 180 minutes. Is Carlo Ancelotti, who still has a year left on his contract, because his contract runs until 2026, this is also his failure, right? And maybe nobody, not even Pep, not even Klopp, not even Arteta, whoever you want, could make this team work with that front four, because I really believe, a bit like what we used to see at PSG when Messi, Neymar and Mbappe were there, this is not a team. It's just a front four who don't defend much, who attack very individually, like, let's give the ball to Vinicius, let's see what he can do. Let's give the ball to Rodrigo or Kylian. And maybe nobody could have sorted this mess, really.
That's a good question to ask. I think it's obviously Ancelotti is hugely experienced, hugely successful and so on, but the dynamic of that forward line, it just doesn't work, in my opinion, against teams like Arsenal. I think it could work against other teams whereby, like, the talent gap is bigger. But say, as we saw yesterday, for example, the times when Mbappe is squaring up Saliba, but Saliba's going to win most of those, so it's fine. It's a familiar adversary, whatever. So I think it will have to go down as his failure, obviously. I think for the way that they approached that second leg, didn't really feel like a team that were ever going to score 3 goals.
Yeah.
How were they going to be breaking them down? You've seen times where, there'll be a long ball played. Hopefully someone wins a second ball and they go and do this. But, like, we're talking about Real Madrid here with some of the best players in European and world football. So I think there is going to be something that's going to be on him, obviously. This competition, they are the kings of Europe. Like, there's no discussion.
There, for sure.
It's one of those objective things. That's just who they are. So I think for them to lose 5-1 on aggregate to an Arsenal side who many people a few months ago didn't fancy at all.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it does need to be looked at properly, just because you'd think they'd Real Madrid would have the firepower at this stage in the season to be able to do more than this. But again, I'm not sure. What do you think?
So I don't think he would be there next season. I think this is on him in a way to not have found...
Would you think he'd want to be there next season, given the situation of the team right now?
I think if things have to change anyway.
Yeah.
And we can talk about the players, how this squad was built. I know it's Real Madrid, and that's what they do as well. They sign Galacticos, they sign the superstars, and they make them work together and usually win. Although they've had Galacticos before, we didn't win much together. Because, as we've been saying so many times, it's not because you just add up individual talent that this is going to make a winning team. You need more, as we saw with Arsenal, who are a better team collectively, more cohesion, better structure, better just team spirit overall. So maybe if the club was to say to Ancelotti, listen, okay, Vinicius is going to go for the sake of it, or Rodrigo is going. You can sign the midfielder that you want, because this is on Carlo 100% for never finding the answer and the key really to.
Do you think there is an answer with the squad that he has?
I think you had to drop one of that front four.
Okay.
I don't care if you have to drop Vinicius, if you have to drop Rodrigo, if you have to add Camavinga and Valverde and Tchouaméni to have a more balanced midfield and a more balanced team, full stop, because the front four I just don't think is good enough, doesn't defend enough, doesn't... I mean, Mbappe in the Champions League this season, which is not new because we saw that in Paris, I know, runs in average per Champions League match 6 kilometers.
That's a lie.
6.2 kilometers.
That is a lie. That is a lie.
6.2 kilometers.
That is a lie. Take
How?
that back. Take that back. That is a
How?
lie.
In the first leg, as a team, they ran 13 kilometers less than Arsenal last night in a game that they have to win. So you have to put the intensity, the energy, the pressing, the counter press, everything. This is the game where you have to outrun the opposition. I think they ran 9K left than Arsenal.
Did you say no? Did you say 6 kilometers?
6.2 or 6.4.
There was somebody in the Arsenal team at the stats at halftime who'd run 6.2 in the first half.
I know.
They're playing the same game, yeah?
Yeah, they played the same game. And I know as a... Like,
do you know what?
Rice
It was Odegaard. Odegaard was 6.2.
I know. It's mad. And I know Rice or Rice would run more than a number 9, whoever that is. Haaland, Mbappe, Lewandowski, or should run more. But this is ridiculous.
Yeah, obviously, like when a team's doing well, those stats don't matter.
Yeah.
But in reality, when you come up against a good collective, then those things really do matter. Not least of all, for example, we can talk about Mbappe, but when Martinelli makes his run from the edge of the box in the last minute of the game, why is he running faster than everybody else?
I know.
There are players.
You said when we were watching, like Luka Modric was one of the players who's jogging.
Jogging is like.
You said you don't want.
I'm not asking him to be Usain Bolt, but like,
come on,
please. And then like Fran Garcia sees it late. Other players like, well, we can't do it anymore. And that running stuff really, really does matter, because at halftime in the game, the top two for running distance for Arsenal, it was Marino and Odegaard. Yeah. And you could make a case that that's sort of Arsenal's front two. The Real Madrid front 2 or 3, you couldn't even see their numbers. They were not in the top anything. So that sets the tone. If you've got a team where your attackers work that hard, then it means that everyone behind them will work hard as well.
Yeah.
But when that's the case from Real Madrid, like, I don't know, like for Ancelotti, maybe we're there next season, maybe he won't be. But whoever comes in next, there's going to be a lot of pressure to find the right formula if all these people do remain. Because as we've seen throughout most of this season, there are times when they get away with it. But there's never been a really long spell where they've looked far and away as good as we think that they could have been.
Yeah, definitely. Well, on Mbappe, as you know, as much as I love him, not his night again last night. I think 5 games in a row now where he doesn't score in all competitions. The first leg was not his game either. He had that chance that we mentioned earlier, didn't take it. He obviously left PSG to come to Real Madrid, which was his dream. But also he went there to win the Champions League and to win the Ballon d'Or and to win big trophies. He will end up with PSG still in the competition and being a better team without him, really collectively. And Real Madrid not being as good as they were last season, for example. I don't think it's all on Kylian if they have regressed. Kroos not being there and not having been replaced. The Carvajal injury is a massive blow, of course. Militao's injury to some extent too. The way the squad was built, we said that. So there's aging players too in that squad. So there's a lot of other issues than Mbappe. But again, last night was not good enough, right?
No, not even close to being good enough. And, you'd think coming to Real Madrid will give you the best chance to do well in the Champions League, but this is one of the worst Champions League campaigns we've seen Real Madrid have in many, many years.
Yeah.
As you said, he's not totally at fault for that, but you would have thought they'd be able to elevate them in some way. I think maybe we saw it against like Man City or whatever in 2 rounds ago. But in reality, there have been certain games where they've just been like scraping by.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you do the comparisons, you say with Paris Saint-Germain, people saying PSG look a better side. How is Mbappe going to take that?
I know.
They do look a better collective, look like a better side from that standpoint. And he's a star. Like, he is a star. He's one of the best forwards in world football. But now he's ended up, in this particular season, having one of the worst campaigns that Real Madrid have seen in the Champions League in recent years. You have to take some sort of brunt on that.
Yeah,
but then,
I think so.
But then it's the squad stuff as well, as you say.
Yeah, I just not sure how much for somebody so smart, and he's really, really intelligent. I just don't know if he's the kind of guy to say, okay, like Thibaut Courtois said something really interesting after the game yesterday. He said, we all have to, which is what players say a lot, especially after disappointment. We have to look at ourselves now and see, that we're not doing enough for this team and we have to do better, all of that. He also said that they are just individuals who are trying to play and they don't play as a team. I thought Courtois was really good in his post-match analysis. Not long after the game had just finished, but saying we put crosses in, but we don't have Joselu, who is obviously very good in the end, a big guy.
Yeah.
Instead, like you said, it was easy for Kivior and Rice and Partey and Saliba to just clear all those crosses. But I'm not sure if Kylian, I don't know how Kylian reacts to that. Is Kylian going to say like, well, it's not my fault here because I don't get the service and clearly the team is not clicking and working around me anyway. So could I have really done more?
Yeah.
Or if he's going to actually say, this hasn't been good enough.
That's a super interesting point, because I think for the way that some football clubs work, in fact, it's probably many, a lot of times you can tell how good they are as a collective based on whether you can tell someone something openly. So say, for example, if people aren't trying enough and you can say that to someone, firstly, the person you're saying it to will understand that they need to do more. But if you're in a place whereby you can't criticize certain people, but those certain people are the ones who either make or break the whole team, then everyone's treading on eggshells. Yeah. That's not like a cohesive team.
That's not good.
And that's like a reliance. And if you are in that front line, you think you're doing more than enough and you blame other people for the shortcomings, then it's the manager that needs to say to people, this is what's going on, because otherwise you'll always have the same problems.
And this could be at the heart of what Real Madrid are not working well this season either, is because they all look at each other and say, well, it's not on me. This is not my fault. Like, there was a lot of nervosity, we thought, watching the game. Jude Bellingham at times just went in and, it was okay. It was all legit, but went in hard on some tackles and stuff. He looked frustrated. Yeah. And I think he should be, because I said it after the first leg, you have Jude Bellingham in your team and yet you hardly use him. You use him to make those runs almost as a second striker, but surely in the build-up, phase, you could use him. The guy is so good on the ball. So he feels a little bit out of all of it. We saw Rudiger being Rudiger, I guess, but could easily have been sent off.
I'd say he should be sent off. I think there was a stamp on Lewis Kelly.
Yeah,
I think that should be a red, I think it's just, I don't know, with Rudiger, with Bellingham in that game, there were times where we were trying to assert some level of physical dominance. Yeah. And if everybody does it, then maybe you're playing against prime Atletico Madrid or something in the Metropolitano. But then when you've got people up front who aren't going to track back anyway, then you just got two individuals trying to do that thing to try and intimidate an opposition. It's so broken, honestly.
If we go back just to Arsenal, just to finish it off, the only, I guess, little negative of the night was the yellow card that Thomas Partey got right at the end of the game. It was something that he was not involved in. It's a foul from Rudiger on Merino, and Partey just comes and basically kind of defend Merino a little bit and goes after Rudiger, who got a yellow for that foul. That yellow meant that he would be suspended for the first leg against PSG in the semi-final. Partey, I think, has been outstanding in the last 3 months or so in that holding role. This team without him is not the same. You can put Jorginho there, you can put Rice a little bit deeper. There's a lot of options that Arteta can do and use. But how a blow is it?
Yeah, so it is a big blow. Arteta's settled upon a group of that in that midfield that works really well for him. Sometimes he might play Jorginho, but that's history. It's Partey, it's Rice, it's Odegaard. The same way you've got Martinelli and Saka. If he could, they'd be the people that are playing. So for him to be missing such an important leg, that first leg in terms of setting the tone, to have something to take to Paris in that second leg, that is massive. And I think just then when we were talking about, say, the attitudes between players in terms of when someone's messed up or not, as soon as Partey gets the yellow card, Declan Rice is in his face saying, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Partey takes it because he knows he's made a mistake. And I think for him to be missing that tie, and now Arteta has to think of something different. That's a different profile of player.
Yeah, exactly. You have to change something. You are forced to change something.
Which you wouldn't want to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Which you wouldn't want to do. That's a huge shame. He's somebody that should know better.
Yeah.
But again, within football, we all make mistakes. And it's just a shame for him because that's a massive mistake. And hopefully from their perspective, it doesn't end up costing them across the two legs.
Right, enough PSG, Real Madrid. What about some quickies, Nedum?
Yeah, let's go, my friend. Let's go.
Neds, Villa gave PSG a scare on Tuesday night and can be proud of their second leg, especially the second half in that second leg. The aim, I guess, now from a Villa point of view is to establish themselves and have more of those nights?
Absolutely, yeah. Obviously, it's a disappointment for them to go out. But they're the team that beat PSG in an individual game. Since you're wearing the shirt, when's the last time PSG lost a game?
I mean, Liverpool first leg, but still, it doesn't happen that often.
Yeah,
It doesn't happen
it's
that
true,
often.
it's true. But even that game itself was robbery.
Yeah,
you know
was.
what I mean?
It
So
was.
fair play to Villa. It's been an incredible campaign for them. And I think a positive for them is in terms of form, they're one of the informed sides in the Premier League right now. So not only have they been in the Champions League, they should have every belief that they can be in the Champions League again next year. And if they are, well, the expectation, imagine how high it could be.
Yeah, I know. I agree.
So your Tuesday night then must have been pretty stressful with the PSG performance, though.
I could hardly watch it. Yeah, I could hardly watch, to be fair. I won't lie again. But in a way, and we discussed that together on Wednesday in our show, I like the fact that PSG went through that because it's a young team that is still learning, is still growing. They took the eye off the ball at 2-0 up in that second leg, first half, because they were cruising. They were 5-1 up on aggregate, and they literally stopped playing. Then Dembele said after the game, we took it easy, and you can't do that in the Champions League. In the league, it's okay because they are so much better than everybody else. Even if you stop playing, if you start making mistakes, you're still going to win the league and the game. In the Champions League, you can't. And they almost got punished for it.
Would you have wanted Enrique to make more changes second half?
I can understand why he didn't, because I think it's a really hard game when you're so much under pressure in that second half to bring really in midfield Zaire Emery, who is 19, and like you throw him literally at the deep end, and I'm not sure that's the answer either. And I think for as good as they've been in 2025, Neds, and as potentially they can win this whole competition, yes, but they still lack a bit of height in midfield. And we saw that Villa played long. They had loads of tall, big players that can hurt you, and they did. When you have little Vitinha and Neves, and it's not the same. They lack a bit of experience too, and how you manage those, especially the moments where you are under pressure in a game. And maybe a little bit more depth in that midfield area, for example, or even defensively to go to a back five. You know, they could not really bring Beraldo on for that. So it's part of the learning curve, but I think it's good that you've suffered to get there, because I think they will use that and they will learn a lot from that game.
Yeah, for sure.
Sergio Guirassy scored a hat-trick for Dortmund against Barcelona on Tuesday night as well, but it was not enough. Like PSG, the Catalans suffered, but again, they will learn a lot from that defeat in Germany.
Yeah, you would think so. I think with a manager like Flick, he will be able to take the lessons that really matter from that game and say it to the team, because, you know, it's the knockout rounds of the competition. It's playing away from home sides will throw everything at you. And sometimes those mistakes that you make in regular season, maybe like they don't matter, you don't get punished. But now all of a sudden momentum's there. You know, you look at the decision from Szczesny in terms of bringing him down for the penalty. Some of the technical issues in terms of giving Guirassy some chances as well. And people really like taking the game to you. Like when you at this part of the season, desperation is a big part that comes into how you play against teams. And when you play against top quality sides as well, that stuff will matter. So for Barca, it's great they're in the semi-final. But it's been a long time since I've seen them suffer that much, it feels like, against a side who not many people would have fancied either in Dortmund, given how well the first leg went for Barca. But it's a lesson, as you said.
If you Guirassy and you score a perfect hat-trick as well, right foot,
exactly
left foot,
what
header,
it was,
how do you feel after the game? Because he was man of the match, a bit like Dembele, and didn't really won the trophy because he was knocked out.
I think it's definitely one that I remember.
Yeah.
You know, scored in the Champions League, scored a hat-trick in the Champions League against Barcelona, and he's the top scorer currently.
Yeah.
And he's knocked out. So who could possibly catch him?
Lewandowski on Rafinha on 12 and Lewandowski of 11 maybe, or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think if you've got that striker DNA in you, you're a bit sad, but you're out.
Yeah, you're like, come
on. I'll put this man of the match trophy next to my hat-trick ball. Yeah, but thank you very much.
But I don't really want it, but I still put it
there. I don't want it. I don't want this, but it's going to go right here, and I'm going to polish it every week. So Bayern Munich and Harry Kane put up a great fight against Inter Milan, but it wasn't enough as they are out, Jules. Will they have any regrets?
Yeah, I think so. That's what Vincent Kompany, who we like a lot, so we're a little bit biased here, but also said after the game, in the first leg, because they came back to 1-1 and then 2 minutes later considered a counter-attacking goal that they lost at home 2-1. It was a similar story on Wednesday night where they took the lead with Harry Kane, came back into the tie level on aggregate, and then 2 set pieces, they were done in the space of 2 minutes after their first goal. So the way they managed the leads, whether they managed their game was clearly not good enough. For Vincent, I think still trying to find the right balance for this team, attacking wise and defensive wise, because they're really good going forward defensively, at time a bit shaky. And to be fair, they got bad injuries at the wrong time. No Upamecano, no Davis, no Ito, no Musiala as well, which would have hurt any teams really to lose some of those key players. So it's a bit of a shame, but it's still a learning curve for Vinny, right?
Yeah, you would say so. You would say so. I think this is, unless you did it Anderlecht, this is his first Champions League
Yeah,
campaign
it
as
is,
a coach.
proper, yeah.
And he's doing it for Bayern Munich in the season where the final is in Munich.
Yeah.
So that comes with significant pressure. And they'll be disappointed, obviously. But again, it's those little details, because I think what some people forget sometimes, you mentioned the 2 set-piece goals. We only think about set pieces in terms of how teams attack, but you as a defence, you've got time to set up as well.
Yeah.
So when you lose games and you concede in that manner, the frustration is enormous, because you know the things that you could be doing.
Right, let's go and have more cricket, Ned.
Yeah,
Manchester United face Lyon in a few hours in the Europa League quarterfinal second leg. And at least, Ned, we will know who's in goal this time for Manchester United, because Ruben Amorim said that Andre Onana is back for sure.
Yeah, he's back, yeah.
Back for sure. So what was the point of dropping him at the weekend?
Was he dropped? Was he rested? Was it about his performance? Was it not? I personally didn't like it, because the game against Newcastle on the weekend was also a big game.
Yeah.
So if you believe that he's your number one, then give him a chance to be able to find more form. For me personally, and I'm sure it's the same for lots of other players, if you're not playing well, the best way sometimes to get out of that is to play better. To take away the opportunity, I think that makes it strange. And he knows now there'll be more eyes on him for this game against Lyon.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that he missed
more
the
pressure,
weekend.
right? Yeah.
Literally, there's more
100%.
pressure. But Amorim, that's his decision. I'm sure this game, well, one thing about United, it's never smooth, is it? So
It's never. I can't wait. I'm going back to Manchester.
I can see the big smile on your face. You're ready for this one,
I cannot wait,
yeah?
because I think Lyon will be a massive, massive, massive opponent for them.
yeah, maybe. But anyway, Jules, Ange Postecoglou then is under more pressure than ever. Could this game against Frankfurt be his last as Tottenham manager?
I mean, we've said many times, didn't we, that he's still in the job because of the Europa League. He had the 3 cups, the FA Cup, the League Cup, where he went to quarterfinals, semifinals, and now the Europa League to kind of save himself, his position, but also save the season. The 2 domestic cups are gone, long gone, obviously, and now this Europa League, and I think really I could easily see them if they're knocked out on Thursday night, so tonight as we record, getting rid of him and having maybe Ryan Mason being the interim coach until the end of the season, and then going for Thomas Frank, going for Andoni Iraola, going for somebody else, really, because I just don't think the Postecoglou project has worked out. And I remember quite early on saying that Ange Ball could work in Scotland, no offense, could work in Japan or in Australia, no offense, not in the Premier League, because you get found out.
Do you think they would have been in a higher, just a better position if players would have been available for longer? How big a factor are the injuries?
I know we say that, Ned, but
No, I'm
they
just
were
asking,
not
I'm just
good at
asking.
the end of last season when everybody was fit. They were not good at the start of this season when everybody was fit, and now everybody's fit again, and they're still not good. So yeah, it didn't help for sure, and he had to tinker and use young players. All of that, I get all of that, but the collapsing since for a year, so since April of last year. In that period of time, of all the teams that had been in the Premier League over those 2 seasons, they've lost the most games, 22. That's under him. That's with most of his players available at times too.
What I would say is that it's like a chain of events. Like, some pundits didn't like Ange from the get-go because
probably.
they said he's coming from Scotland, but then they were doing well.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the pundits say, well, they're not good enough. General fans start saying someone's not good enough, and we're at the final stage now where I think their own fans don't believe in him either.
Yeah, and the players, I think, as well.
So unfortunately, yeah, you would think that this is going to be the end for them.
Newcastle destroyed Crystal Palace on Wednesday night in the game in hand 5-0 at St James's Park. They're up to 3rd now in the table.
That's
looking
Carabao
really good.
Cup winners Newcastle United, by the
That's
way.
right.
Put some respect on their name.
The parade with 300,000 people in the streets.
And rightly so, I've played football up there. Like, football is everything to them. And when the club's doing well, the city's a very, very different city. And in fairness to them being in 3rd now, they deserve to be there.
Yeah.
The run of form that they're on, like, I'll be honest, a couple of months ago, I thought it was just going to be Liverpool, Arsenal, Forest just clear up there. But now Forest have been dragged into this little the battle for the top 5 or whatever it is. So yeah, credit to Newcastle. They're there. And it's a fantastic game of the weekend. Newcastle versus Aston Villa.
Massive.
2 of the most informed sides in the league going head to head for a chance to be in that top 5. So yeah, fair play to Newcastle. They are on fire.
They are very good.
So Kylian Mbappe then, your friend, he's been suspended by La Liga for 1 game after his red card against Alaves. Jules, seems like a light punishment.
Yeah, so if you don't remember it, or if you haven't seen it, it's a really bad challenge from Mbappe on Antonio Blanco in the middle of the pitch, where Mbappe is coming from the side and goes studs in straight on the side of his shin, basically. It was a yellow first that then VAR called up the referee. The referee should have seen it straight away. But anyway, it was a red for those kind of offense. is between 1 and 3 games. I think a lot of people in Spain thought it would be at least 2,
Yes.
probably 3.
Yes.
But the referee in his report said he played the ball, which
He didn't try and play the ball?
he didn't try. The ball was gone a long
literally.
time before. That Blanco was not injured. I don't think
That shouldn't make a
whether a
difference
player's
to me.
injured make a difference or not in how you assess a challenge like this. And if you're Barcelona, and by the way, they've already complained, you're feeling really harshly done by really like Kylian Mbappe and Real Madrid getting away with it, basically. And I've got a bit of an issue with it because
I'm the same.
2 games really, maybe even 3.
I just think I don't think 2 should be an option. I think it should be 1 or 3.
Yeah.
So I think they do that in England. I think 3 would have been the right number because you can't have that only cost 1 game. Because say, for example, he makes the same tackle, the guy breaks his leg, is it still 1 game? Or does it become 3?
Exactly, that's the thing. But then where do you draw the line then? So injuries should not come into consideration.
No,
we agree.
Because every player is essentially different. Some people hurt themselves doing minute things. Some people have to be quite severe. The fact is, the intent for the tackle is the wrong intent.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, that shouldn't be allowed in the game.
So on the big ESPN FC show, Ale Moreno, our friend and colleague, said that he felt Mbappe went in to injure Blanco, which I think was a bit too much. I don't think, certainly not Kylian, as well as I know him, would go on a pitch and want to injure somebody else.
No, I don't think he tried to do that. It feels to me like he's tried to step over the ball to almost shield it from the player. But in reality, like, there's only one person trying to play for the ball then. So in that case, like, that's not having care for the people that you play with. So I think from Mbappe's perspective, for him to only get 1 game for that, if that tackle happened to Mbappe,
on him,
you'll never see that player again.
Yeah, definitely.
You say Blanco?
Yeah.
Blanco vanished. Yeah, Blanco's vanished. So yeah, I'm not happy with that, and I'm not necessarily all the way with Ale, like, but I see that like Mbappe's done something there, which it's just not a football play for me.
No, I agree. And then I looked back at the red cards. There's one really bad in the French Cup where he goes again purely on frustration. On, I think it was Da Silva, the defender. So he kind of did it before when he loses a little bit his head through frustration. Liam, the son of Ruud van Nistelrooy, remember him, has just signed his first professional contract with PSV Eindhoven, a 17-year-old.
That's nice.
Neds, will we see Nedum Jr. one day as a professional footballer?
Do you know what? So I have 2 of my kids do play football. My youngest son, my middle daughter, and they're good, to be fair. My daughter's like nice. To be fair, she's nice. But
love that.
It makes me realise that the career that I had, so many people want to have played professionally, and to get somebody even for Van Nistelrooy's son there to just sign a professional contract, that's a huge achievement. It's a dream that so many people want to have.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it'll ever happen. I'll never say no, but you know, you've got to enjoy it and you've got to be lucky as well, because so many people, I'd say, want to do it. Yeah,
true. So we often look at sons of, and there must be something either in the water that is running in your house or something, but there's also a lot of sons or daughters of great footballers who just never make it. They're maybe not very good at football.
Yeah, of course. Like,
what happens, do you think?
There's a lot to it. As you know yourself, it's not just the talent, it's the mentality, it's the desire, because you come up against people where football is everything to them. But one thing about, say, former players, and it's not like every former player has a child who goes to play professionally. But you've got the resources to be able to do it, whether it's the money to be able to be coached from early, whether it's the access to be able to watch things, or say from the sideline, like when I watch my kids play football, some of the stuff that gets said on the sidelines, I know is irrelevant for like what actually makes a kid good or not. So you can have a keen eye to be able to teach them the things that matter the most, but do it from earlier. So it just depends. But it's no surprise to me that so many like younger players are coming up with their parents being footballers as well. Yeah, totally get that. So Jules and Christophe Dugarry and Didier Deschamps, who won the World Cup together in '98, was it? Yeah. They won't be going on holiday together though, will they?
Definitely not. I mean, we knew there was a bit of beef between them. But I think Christophe Dugarry, who gave an interview to La Gazzetta dello Sport in Italy on Wednesday, just put it very, very simply. So like, I don't like him. He doesn't like me. Even when we were teammates and playing with each other, we didn't like each other. We just had nothing in common. And that's never going to change. So I'm never going to like him. He's never going to like me. Let's be clear about it. Obviously, Dugarry is very close to Zinedine Zidane, who's not either very close to Deschamps. Zidane wants the job that Deschamps had for the last 12 years. So I think the beef probably started there, as well as when they used to play with each other. I just find it funny that those old guys, they're not that old, but like ex-pros, just sometimes come out and just slag each other off like that, like two-footed tiger. Boom! I don't
Yeah.
like you. I will never like you. Bim.
Will Deschamps say something?
He's kind of probably because of the role he has, because Dugarry now is a pundit on radio and he used to do a lot of TV, and so that's part of his role. Deschamps is the national team head coach. He can't really get into those fights and beef, you know. So let's see if he responds. I don't think he will.
Well, let me get the direct question in then. Are you Team Dugarry or Team Deschamps?
It's a good question, that. I mean, Dugarry works for the same French radio that I work on, so I kind of like, if he's listening, you know.
Christophe, I've always loved you. You've always been my favorite.
You're my favorite, you know. Big news coming out of Liverpool this morning, Neds, because it's official now. Virgil van Dijk has extended his contract.
I think that's brilliant news for them. He's, for me, one of the best defenders in Premier League history.
Yeah.
I think what he means for that football club and the way that he plays as leader, I think he really sets the tone. And going back a few months when you're thinking they might lose Van Dijk, Alexander-Arnold, Salah, like these are the real like special players within that football club. So for him to be staying, for him to be talking the way that he has done, for him to have played as good a season as he has done.
True.
I think for Liverpool fans, there's always this worry that, a change would need to come. And the new manager coming in and start the season, you're anxious. But they've obviously done very well, going to be Premier League champions. But when you know Van Dijk's going to be there next season, when you know Salah's going to be there next season, obviously they'll be a bit older.
Yeah, that's the question I was going to ask you. And I'm only playing devil's advocate here. Don't abuse me, Liverpool fans. I'm just saying.
No, they will. They will.
Salah turns 33 in June and Virgil turns 34 in July. So you're giving two huge contracts. I know they're only 2 years extensions, but still, it's a lot of money tied into players who will be 36 and 35 at the end of their new contract.
I think from a playing perspective, they can only gain leverage if they play well. And you look at them, they've played as good as they've played in any time, in any year at Liverpool. So that's the leverage that they would have over the club. And knowing that the fans acknowledge that and sense that, then those negotiations become that little bit easier. Well, I say, I deserve more. I deserve 2 years. I deserve this pay.
Yeah.
And what would Liverpool say in terms of why not? Oh, because you're older. But then here's my performance. This is who we are, and so on. So I think credit to him and Salah for being able to perform as well as they've done to get these deals. But now for Liverpool, yes, they have rolled the dice, as you say.
They have to stay at that level.
They have to stay at the level, or even they've got to stay close to it, because you can't invest like that in players that will decline heavily in 2 years.
Yeah.
But for now, why would you believe that they would? So Jules, then, more injury problems for Neymar.
This was really sad. And I know there's a lot of people who don't have much sympathy for him, and I understand that. But he came back from a first injury.
Do you have sympathy for him?
I do, in a way, because I think the talent was incredible. And now he's obviously in his 30s. The career will be over pretty soon if it's because he can't get injury-free now. He came back on Monday against Fluminense, played, I think, one half, looked okay, started the game last night against Atletico Mineiro, and after half an hour, just fell on the floor crying, doing another, either his calf or his hamstring, and leaving the pitch. And I just think, whether you like him or not, whether you think he fulfilled all that potential or not, the right attitude, I don't know, but you just don't want anybody crying on the football pitch because of yet another injury.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I think it's really sad. Since he came back to Brazil and Santos, I mean, already when he went to Saudi Arabia, that was a disaster through injury. Then going back to Santos was a great idea, but really, again, the injuries have prevented him from playing, from enjoying it, from being value added to this squad, to this team. So it's an absolute shame, and I just don't know when he's going to come back, how he's going to come back. Is it realistic to even think about, I don't know, the World Cup in 2026? Do you see what I mean? Like, where does he go from now? Because he must have played, I don't know, like 5 games in 2.5 years or something.
For sure. There are some tough days ahead for him with the injury and, given all the stuff that's happened in the last couple of years, as you say. But he comes across to me as somebody whose life is based around football.
Yeah.
So I think sometimes, logically, someone might say, oh, you need to pack it in and so on. I think he'll play till he cannot walk anymore.
Yeah, no, that's his
joy.
Yeah.
That's his joy, but we'll see.
Kevin De Bruyne, who, as we know, will leave the Premier League, sadly, and your beloved Manchester City at the end of the season, is being linked with MLS and especially the Chicago Fire. We know that his discovery rights belong to Inter Miami, which is another story. but first of all, would you like to see him in MLS? And do you think that this would be the right choice for him to go to at this stage of his career?
Personally, obviously seeing him leave Man City is, it's devastating from my standpoint. He's probably been my favorite City player that I've not played with.
Yeah.
So he's such an incredible player. To see him leave City is devastating. But to see him go to MLS, if that's where he chooses to go, I think it's going to be really, really interesting because having played over there, like you can see the value that, say, foreign players can have within that American environment. Obviously, you don't come over and disrupt everything, but you've got different experiences. And with Kevin, this is one of the best players and midfielders the Premier League's ever seen.
Yeah.
So for him to go over and to be able to have an impact with his side, with the league itself, you see this yourself. I think everyone listening sees this. You can travel the world and you can see an Inter Miami shirt.
Absolutely.
A team has been going for 5 years.
Yeah.
And what's the reason for that? Well, maybe it's someone like Lionel Messi. So the value of these stars, obviously, Kevin doesn't carry the same star power as a Lionel Messi, but he's huge. You can just play his highlight reel. Just go on YouTube, just look at him. Just see what that is. But it'll be interesting because I think from my time speaking with him, I think he just wants to be settled somewhere with his family and playing football week in, week out. Those are his drivers. If he can do that in Chicago, then great. But then obviously for the way MLS works, like you said, Inter Miami have his discovery rights, or someone else has. So speaking about that, like it's weird when you hear that some team has the rights to you and you might not know who they are. And you might not
Salt
spoken to
Lake
anybody.
still have the rights to you, right? If you wanted to play again.
So, man. You know what I mean? So if someone wants to get me from Salt Lake, you have to pay a little fee. But it's very, the way I see MLS is that it's different.
Yeah.
When you first go there, you think it's different. You think you can change it. But in reality, to really enjoy it, you accept it for being different.
Yes.
And you play into it because I think you really start to buy into the idea of having a team that makes the playoffs.
Yeah.
You think, well, what's so good about the playoffs? Well, watch all the other sports. Look at the NBA now in their playoffs.
Yeah.
Look at the NFL in their playoffs. That's what gets people going. And if you can be there and be successful, I'm sure De Bruyne will be desperate to be that. Chicago, obviously, they're not the greatest MLS team right now.
Yeah, no, the 8th. I looked at Greg Berhalter. The head coach,
the
of course.
Manager. They're not the greatest right now, but I think for Kevin, like, listen, he can go anywhere and make a big difference. And I hope he can go there if he goes there.
Yeah, if he does.
If he's to go to MLS, obviously go to Real Salt Lake. But if you can't go to Real Salt Lake,
maybe Chicago Chicago is a great city too. So.
It is. Until, to be fair, one of my first times going to Chicago, I remember just being at the airport and the sign says like "Beware tornadoes." I was like, okay, that's different. Then there was a tropical storm and those winters. Whatever he thinks about Mancunian winter.
Ooh, yeah.
Brace yourself for that, my friend. Brace yourself for that. So, Jules, then we have a new manager at Sevilla.
Yeah, that's right. It's the end of the road for Garcia Pimienta, who did well when he was at Las Palmas. Went to Sevilla. They just fought into the table now. The season never felt like. Started 7 points above the relegation zone, and who do you call usually to finish the season like a guy that's been there before, right? So Joaquin Caparros, who's a legendary Sevilla coach. This is his fourth stint as a manager. He's like 70 years old or something like that, and he will come, steady the ship, maybe finish top 10 with him because he will, I think, like gather the players again and have that kind of influence. He's that kind of manager too. It's a shame because I think Garcia Pimienta had good ideas, good intentions, but with the squad that he has, they should have been better.
We see with managers like that do come back over and over. When they leave each time, do they say goodbye or do they say see you soon?
Yeah, I think they say see you soon, yeah.
Which is crazy, isn't it?
It's mad. They have a few in Spain, like Voro at Valencia, who's always the guy they call when they sack somebody or they need somebody for 2 months. Voro comes, it's just like, that's what he does.
It's a weird job, that.
I know, it is a weird job. It is a weird job. There's a lot of talk as well in Spain right now about Jurgen Klopp, Ned, because apparently he's unhappy with his role at Red Bull. We're not still really sure exactly what he's doing, but anyway. And there's reports linking it to the Brazil job and also potentially to the Real Madrid job if Carlo Ancelotti was to leave.
That's interesting. If you look at Jurgen Klopp throughout his career as a manager, what would you say the identity of his teams is?
High intensity?
Yeah.
Listen, Kylian. I need you to really run more than 6 kilometers per Champions League.
6 kilometers, 90 minutes. Kylian. No, my friend. Yeah, I can understand that maybe he's not as happy in his Red Bull job because it's very different to the job that he's done for the previous 10, 15 years or however long it's been. But I think it's great if in theory he has been linked with Real Madrid and Brazil, arguably two of the biggest like footballing projects in world football.
You would dream, that you would want
of
one
course,
day, I guess.
Of course. But it also has to be the right fit.
Yeah.
I'd imagine if he came to Real Madrid and he had to do things in a different manner to what's brought him to this point, that would be disappointing. And maybe the same could be said for Brazil. So I personally don't see Jurgen Klopp as a Real Madrid manager. I don't see him as a Brazil manager.
I agree.
But, if he's bored, maybe it's just a
Yeah.
little reminder, guys. I'm kind of
And maybe
available.
guys like him can't be away from the bench for too long. I know he felt he was tired. I think
Yeah.
his wife also wanted him to have a bit of a break. Maybe those guys can't. It'd be the same for Pep. Maybe I don't know. They
Yeah,
can't.
it's true. It's true. There is something about those guys because like football is their identity,
Yeah.
and the day-to-day side of things is what drives them. Obviously, there are negatives that come with that, but the positives are like you see a group of people all the time. It's a very unique
Yeah,
job.
yeah.
It's something when you're a part of it and you feel the success, like you can't get a better feeling. And he's obviously someone who was hands-on beforehand, so for him to not be able to be hands-on right now.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, like just being on your laptop more often than not isn't necessarily
Playing
what.
paddle. Yeah, it's good,
exactly.
but,
Paddles. It's the future. So staying with unemployed managers, Max Allegri is the new favourite to get Milan job in the summer, Jules.
Yeah, I think it's pretty clear now, Nez, that Sergio Conceição won't continue next season. I mean, they're ninth in the table. He won the Super Cup, but they haven't really improved since he took over Paulo Fonseca. So another Portuguese manager, I guess another disappointment in a way. They're 6 points behind fifth place. They're ninth, 6 points behind. So they top five will go to the Champions League next season for Italian clubs. So they can technically still make it, but it hasn't worked out for Sergio Conceição. And what's interesting is more talking about identity and going back to what we were saying about club. Where do they go next? Because Max Allegri has been there before, very successfully, won the title with Milan in 2011. But the reason why he got sacked from Juventus, it was because he was playing like old school football. And that's super defensive, not really entertaining kind of football. And is that really what Milan want right now? I know he's a winner, he's a bit like Conte, but he also divides opinion in what kind of football you're going to get from your team. So it'd be interesting to see. They need something different, I guess, to Conceição and Fonseca before. I get that. I'm just not sure Allegri will be my pick. That's what I'm saying.
Fair.
Luka Modric is out of the Champions League. We said that with Real Madrid. No more this season. But at least he'll be able to focus on something else, Nedum, because he's a new minority owner of Swansea City. I mean, please.
Things you never
What
thought
is
you'd
going
see.
on?
Headlines you never thought you'd see. Luka Modric and his links to Swansea. Yeah. I don't know. I suppose in the last few years, we've seen quite a few sports stars,
Yeah.
whether they're currently playing or retired, being minority investors in clubs like LeBron James at Liverpool.
Yeah.
You're seeing Tom Brady at Birmingham, because obviously Tom Brady and Birmingham have a rich history again.
Absolutely.
But I think for these guys, like, maybe it's different for Modric, I'm not sure, but it's a chance of an investment based on a consortium.
Yeah.
And maybe there's a value to that long term. I think how they pick the clubs, I'm not 100% sure about. But for whatever money that he's putting in, I think he won't necessarily be checking on the investment on a day-to-day basis to see if it's making its money back. But who knows? Like, it's a positive for Swansea. You know, they'll be thinking that they're going to try and be progressing with Modric being there, and some of those others as well. They're investing in the belief that they will get better, that they will get to the Premier League. So if I was a Swansea fan, that would be positive.
I think I'd be excited, yeah.
Yeah, I just wouldn't necessarily believe that 40-year-old Luka Modric, for example, might decide to come to Swansea if he ever.
No, you don't want him and Joe Allen in midfield?
I mean, 46 games in the Championship. It's not for it's not for everyone. I'll be honest with you. It's not for everyone at all. Yeah. So also big news then for Brentford and their owner.
Yeah, that's right. Because we've discussed a lot on the show multi-club ownership, and Manchester City is a club that you know well, who has few satellite clubs. Chelsea is another one, etc. And Brentford have the owner of Brentford, Matthew Benham, has just bought Merida, who is a small club in the third division in Spain. They're currently fifth, doing quite well. And I find this one really interesting because I wonder if it might be a different style of multi-club ownership, in the sense, like, hear me out. Brentford used to also own Midtjylland, which they made better.
Yep.
They improved. They made them work with data. They had a great project around that. And then when the club was better, they sold it for more money than they bought it for. And I wonder if Merida, instead of being like another club where you can loan your players, for example, which is what a lot of other clubs who have satellite clubs do, like Leipzig, like Chelsea and Strasbourg, for example, big example, even City. Maybe the fact is they buy Merida, they work their magic a bit like what they've done with Brentford, but on a Spanish level with a club that maybe they think they can shape like a Brentford in Spain to the second division, maybe even to La Liga. And then there will be clubs, there will be rich people who want to buy maybe that club, and then they sell out and make money of it.
It's a big conversation here to be probably mentioned about people just investing in football clubs, not necessarily for the heart, the soul, or the thought of the city itself, but seeing it as like just businesses. How do you feel about that, say, from the perspective of somebody from the outside? And also, how do you reckon you'd feel if you were somebody who supported, say, Merida, for example?
if they make you if the idea is to make you better,
to be sold.
but
Or
to
in
be
general?
sold, well, yeah, I mean, in general, you suspect if you invest time and money like Matthew Benham and Brentford are doing with Merida, is to make them better. If it's always the same, I think. If they make you better and then decide to sell the club, as long as they sell it to the right person, I'd be fine with that if I was a fan. I understand what you mean. Is like things have changed. It's a business,
point
right?
of that. Yeah, that's the
you're,
thing.
You're just buying a company.
Yeah.
And you make that better. You make a few cuts. I mean, we see Sir Jim Ratcliffe at United. United is like Ineos. He would do the same kind of cuts to save money there and there in one of the many companies that he owns. So maybe that's what football clubs are now, you know?
Yeah, I would agree. I'm not necessarily sitting on the fence about it. I just think it's interesting because there are so many different perspectives.
Yeah.
But if I was the fan of a club that may be struggling, here's a chance for us to get better. The fact that somebody might want to sell it further down the road, as you say, maybe I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I see. I think it's a great debate to have, to be fair. Nedum, good news for all the Lionel Messi fans out there.
Messi. Yeah, because he's going to be playing in the World Cup 2026, apparently, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, that's what Luis Suarez we've been saying.
Is Suarez going to be doing that? How old would he be?
Yeah, or what kind of knees will he have by then?
Well, medicine's always improving. He
Very
might
true,
have
very true. There's a year, pretty much less than a year-ish to go to the World Cup. You don't think that Messi can do it?
No, I think Messi can do it, of course, yeah. The fact that he's playing in America as well right now,
Yeah.
it probably suits him in terms of acclimatizing to be over there. But a tournament itself is always going to be tricky for the amount of football, the intensity of it, and so on. But we're talking about arguably one of the best players to have ever played the game. And if he has the desire, like we can see on a week-to-week basis in his sort of in MLS, whether you're watching or whether you're watching the highlights,
Yeah.
he still has an impact.
Yeah.
And I tell you, if you want to see the best version of Lionel Messi, pop a number 10 Argentina shirt on his back and see how it affects him and everyone around him. So, yeah, I can understand that he wants to play. If he does play and it's his last one and he can have an impact. And, you know, for him, it's the unique position of being somebody who can be the captain who's trying to defend a world title.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's an honour in itself.
But then is there a question at some point will be the same for Cristiano Ronaldo and Roberto Martinez with Portugal, for Lionel Scaloni and Argentina? Is there a point where you tell Messi when he stops, or you just wait for Messi and Cristiano and maybe there will be others, when they decide to stop, they stop?
I think for me it's all about how not necessarily deluded the player is, but how like reasonable they can be. Because I think some of the best players know when they're not as much of an asset anymore. Obviously, you can then enter this talk about Ronaldo, but then it depends what does he believe he adds to the team. And if it's adding goals, you need goals.
True, but we saw the Euros that he was ineffective. We saw Messi at the Copa America in that same summer 2024. I know they won it. They didn't win it because of Messi. And they wanted more for Lautaro. They wanted more for how solid they were. And
So would you be the manager that gets rid of Ronaldo or Messi?
I don't think you. I mean,
Would you be? Would you?
I think Cristiano, who's 2 years older, by the way, than Messi. So I think 2 years at that age makes a big difference still. If I was Roberto Martinez, I'm not sure I would still call him up. But it's a massive call. Maybe one that Roberto Martinez
makes or break your career for the national team, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't feel like he can make it. And probably the same for Scaloni. They are gods, really.
Yeah.
And with gods, they decide what they do, not you, maybe.
I think with Messi being younger, I can see him playing next year. And that's the thing, the World Cup is next year.
Yeah, true. It's just
for a long time. It's felt like it's a long time away.
Yeah, true.
It's literally next year. So I
think we could say both of them would be there, right? Cristiano and Messi, and that would be the last one.
The Portugal definitely qualify?
I think the whole world will qualify, I think.
Well, of course, I'll see you there.
Yeah.
So the Morocco head coach, Walid
it was a good start.
Regragui.
Yeah.
The Morocco head coach, Walid Regragui, talked for the first time about Lamine Yamal this week, Jules.
Yeah, and I put that in there, Nez, because you and I would relate to it very much, and our children too, because Lamine Yamal, obviously born in Spain, but from Moroccan descent. So with the 2 passport, dual nationality, dual culture even, very much so. Having to choose between Spain and Morocco, and Regragui, who was obviously did really well with Morocco, went really far in the World Cup in Qatar, where we were together, in the AFCON as well. Said that basically they tried everything as early as when Lamine was 15.
Really? To be fair, in the grand scheme of things, he made his debut at 16, so it's probably not that early.
He could probably play for Morocco at 15.
Yeah, literally.
But just trying everything in a very positive way, saying like, this is how much we believe in you. Obviously, this is the country of your dad, all of that. And I think they felt very early on that there was only Spain for Lamine, which is fine. But for us who have you and me now, after being here for a lot, but my children certainly 2 cultures, 2 nationalities, two countries, very much. You could have chosen England or Nigeria. My kids could choose France or England or even Wales with my wife. But those kind of situations where I think people who don't have that same background than us don't realize how big of a decision it is, because your parents might want you to play for one, you might feel more for play for the other, and it could be a really tricky decision to take.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, the decision is obviously tough for you as you're making it, because you could have a connection with both.
Yeah.
But where it becomes hard as well is the people that you don't pick, they will forever hold it against you.
True.
Like from an identity standpoint, like from my side.
How did it happen for you? Like, what was your thought?
My goal was to always have a position whereby Nigeria and England were speaking to me at the same time.
Right.
The call for England I played for England in 21s, never came for full England side. And for Nigeria at the time, I felt club-wise, what was going on in my club situation meant that I couldn't go. From then, I was basically like blacklisted. So I didn't have the option again. And that was in my early to mid-20s, which I still like struggle with now, because I would have loved to have played international football.
Yeah.
But because I didn't play that time in Nigeria, casually, a lot of people, maybe some listening to this podcast as well, they felt like I'm not really Nigerian, like I'm not passionate about playing for Nigeria and so on. But in reality, people on ESPN know that I support Man City. The team that I support 100% is Nigeria, because those are my people.
Yeah.
That's my family, that's my extended family. Those are friends, those are people who are like me, who've come from the same place. But still, you get shunned because you didn't choose it.
Yeah.
So for Lamine Yamal, like he's playing for Spain and he's lauded, he's a hero. But there'll be a lot of people who are hugely disappointed as well. And you will not be shielded from that disappointment. They will find you and they will let you know exactly what they think. So it's tough from that standpoint as well. There's no right answer.
If you could do it again, would you say yes to Nigeria?
1,000%.
When they did in that early 20s, where you felt at the time it was not the right time?
1,000%. Just because as I look back, there's some of the decisions I made which in the time felt like the right decision.
Yeah.
But one thing which I regret was looking back then, thinking that the value of a club career was more important than an international one. Some people say, if you play for a national team, some of the club things will look after themselves and so on. But at the time, I just wanted to stay and play at Man City.
Yeah.
But I was out the team at the time. So to go to AFCON in January, February, for me felt like a tough time to go. I wish I never did that, because then I could have played in that tournament. I could have, gotten a chance to represent a nation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like a nation, and it's 200 million people in the country itself.
Yeah.
And that's something which, as I say, is disappointing, because off the back of that, they believed for the whole time that I never wanted to play, and didn't matter how well I was playing for City, QPR, Sunderland, whoever, never called back again, which was tough to receive. Yeah. But it's football. It's football. Still very much like Nigerian at heart, so it's all good.